Let's just turn now to the radio sector, and this week we did see some figures out in terms of ad revenue falling 2.6% in April on year, with Adelaide the only one of the 5 major metro markets to see growth. James, just looking through the numbers, pretty patchy?
Yeah, we've seen a bit of a slowdown. The radio's held up well until maybe the last, 6 to 12 months. We've seen the numbers slowing a bit, and for April everybody was down except the smallest market when it comes to revenue, and that's Adelaide.
Now, just in other news as well, DMG Radio has lost its finance chief.
Yeah, Kingsley Hall has he's been with the company about 13 years. He was based in Adelaide as DMG Radio launched in Adelaide. Paul Thompson started the company over there, had Kingsley on board as his financial controller, and he was the guy who put his hand up and bid, I think, at a lot of the auction licences for the Nova stations and what became Vega. He's decided to head back to Adelaide and he's leaving the company.
And of course, Smooth FM going to be launching very soon as well. And are you seeing any impact on this already?
Well, in the ratings that came out this week, the 2 stations that will be reverting to rebranding as Smooth have been doing very well. So they're certainly setting up. They're going to launch straight away with a pretty good audience base. All
right, let's have a look at those ratings. This is, of course, Survey 3 from Nielsen for radio. Let's have a look at the Sydney market first and look through 2GB there, seeing a lift of about 0.6.
Yeah, 2GB in 2 days, staying at the top of the market. Big improver there was a WSFM breakfast where Jonesy and Amanda have had 9% share in their best figures ever.
Fantastic. Now, just looking at Melbourne, 3AW remains clear leader there.
Yeah, still the same top 2 there. Triple M doing very well there. Again, Hot Breakfast with Eddie Maguire doing pretty good business down there.
Let's have a look at Brisbane, obviously a very tight market, this one.
Sure, yeah. Look, there have been some light musical chairs with the FM stations up there. Nova Breakfast did very well. It's back at number 1. It's been a while since they were at number 1, I think, but 97.3 still hanging on to top spot overall.
What about in Adelaide? A bit of a fall there for Mix.
Yeah, it was. They're still hanging on as number 1 FM, but the big improver there was Nova. Breakfast show there doing very well, a big jump. SAFM, bit off the boil, but Triple M picking up a few new listeners too.
And let's just finally have a look at Perth and Mix 94.5. Now, there was a fall, but...
Yeah, it looks they dropped back a little bit, but the strength of the brand there, they're still at the top of the market and are doing very well. Nova had a bit of a jump there. Their breakfast show picked up number 1 spot in the FM stakes.
All right, well, let's just stick with that because as we saw there, Mix 94.5 in Perth celebrating its 100th consecutive survey win in that latest survey result. For more on this now, we're joined by Linda Wayman, the General Manager of Southern Cross Austereo in Perth. Linda, thank you so much for your time. Just firstly, if you could tell us how you all celebrated that 100th consecutive win.
Well, we certainly cracked open some champagne and we're going to celebrate again on our rooftop on Friday afternoon and then we'll do a lunch, so it hasn't stopped.
Hello, Linda. Look, thanks for joining us. Am I right there in saying it's a testament to the strength of the brand, even when you get some commercial competition, you can still lead the market?
Yes, and exactly. It was much tighter than what we'd even anticipated. We knew it was actually going to be a tight book with 92.9 often snaps at Mix's heels, but it was even tighter than what we expected. But that's exactly right. The consistency of the brand had just held us up, really.
How does Mix sit in the Southern Cross Austereo network offering? Because you're not actually linked with other Mix brands, are you?
No, well, no, we're not. We're part of the Triple M network. So that makes it a bit difficult, I guess, for some people to wrap their heads around. But we're still the same 25 to 54 target demographic as the Triple M's in the Southern Cross Austereo network.
When it comes to media buys, if agencies, particularly, I guess I'm thinking in Sydney, Melbourne, they buy the network, you come as part of the Triple M network.
Yes.
Are you less reliant on sort of network agency business maybe than some of the other stations in Southern Cross Austereo?
Well, it is probably, we are, as I sometimes say, the Brumby in the pack, but because of that target demographic being 25 to 54, then yes, we're absolutely part of the Triple M buy. They're obviously, they're more male-oriented. Mix 94.5 is an all-people targeted radio station. It does tend to traditionally skew a little bit to the female side of the equation, but it's and you know, our national agency people explain all that to our clients. Our clients have no problem with it. It is, after all, the #1 radio station, so they're really happy to get that in the mix. They're really looking at that 25 to 54 demographic if they want to buy Triple M.
Just looking to, I guess, too, at the strength of the brand overall. How do you manage that when, I mean, you are challenged at various parts of the day?
How do we manage the brand? Is what?
How do you? What do you think it is about the brand that makes you manage to remain #1 when obviously you know, you're facing tough competition throughout the day?
Yeah, we absolutely have tough competition, and Perth is as competitive as any metropolitan radio market. We're very local. Mix 94.5 has a very strong local and community brand value, and we're very, I guess, focused on making sure that those brand values are true. And we're always supporting the big community events, for example, like Skyworks on January the 26th. We do a whole lot of other large community events that we're very involved with. So it's that local programming. We have a local breakfast show, obviously, but we also have a local drive show, and we have a heritage lineup and people who know Perth and revel in Perth, and so it's a very, very strong local brand.
It's obviously important to advertisers, I guess. I don't think you run any syndicated content at all, do you, across the day? And does that mean you've got a bigger sales team than some stations?
We have a fairly large direct sales team, but our direct sales team sells both 94.5 and 92.9. We have a very small agency team, highly productive and very efficient. And again, it's a relationship-driven town as well, so that's important to us. So we're all working hard to keep those relationships happening all the time.
Linda, you travel back and forth across the country regularly. You talk to your colleagues. Do you find that WA radio audiences differ to the rest of the country?
Well, we're certainly not as talkback focused as a Melbourne, for example, or Sydney for that matter. So that's probably one of the biggest differences in the radio market in Perth. Traditionally, it's been an FM music kind of town. So that's probably the biggest difference that you would hear when you come to Perth, or you would see in the numbers, is that it's the sort of people here listen to FM music a lot more than talkback.
And just give us an update on how the stations are going with what you're doing digitally over there. Are you seeing bigger numbers streaming online and perhaps doing podcasts?
We certainly see very strong numbers online for us. Our websites are very strong extensions of our brand, 92.9 in particular. We get very good figures, even mixed with its older demographic. I mean, the Facebook page has something like 11 or 12,000 likes. So we're very active because we've always seen it as a great way of extending our brand and another touch point for our listeners. Podcasts, less so. It's not like a Hamish and Andy huge podcast sales thing, but our online streaming and so on, we get a lot of feedback from overseas as they're obviously streaming us from the internet, from expats. So we do very well with both radio stations, with our websites, huge with 92 in particular.
Linda, just finally, we've seen the CRA ad revenue figures for April showing that fall in ad revenue across all markets apart from Adelaide. What's your outlook then for the rest of the year in terms of ad revenue?
Well, it's very tough I have to say, in trying to figure out what we're going to do, we've just been doing our budget forecasts, and that in itself is very difficult. Perth has taken a fairly big hit, remembering it's come off a fairly big high as well. But our ad agency market was, our local agency market was running at something like negative 10% before this last Deloitte market share results. So it's hard for us to actually forecast what we're doing. We're forecasting small growth of about 2 or 3% in the next financial year.
Linda, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up on Media Week, sports rights fight. Optus takes its battle over TV Now to the High Court.